HB-HTAi Interest Group webinar, How to Assess Digital Technologies. As we wait a few moments for further participants to join, I will share a few slides with you about the Society. HTAi membership holds many benefits, including HTAi's premier events and specialised interest groups, free online access to HTAC, the International Journal of Technology Assessment in Healthcare, HTAi resources and news, including e-newsletters, bulletins, and international developments in HTA, full access to the HTAi Educational Offers database, an international network of HTA experts, innovators, and influencers, a community that's dreaming, shaping, and championing the future of HTA. For more information on membership benefits, visit our membership pages on our website. HTAi interest groups are open to all members of HTAi. They act as a forum for HTAi members to network, exchange information, and collaborate on projects of mutual interest throughout the year. Visit the HTAi website for more information on our interest groups. The next HTAi 2025 annual meeting will take place in Buenos Aires, Argentina, from June the 14th to the 18th. For more information, please visit the event website, HTAi2025.org. We kindly ask participants to remain muted until invited to ask questions. Alternatively, please submit any questions through the Q&A function on the Zoom meeting platform. Thank you again for joining us today. I will now hand over to the co-chairs of the hospital-based HTA Interest Group to formally welcome and introduce today's topic.
Welcome to all from me and my colleague Iga Lipska. We co-chair the interest group on hospital-based HTA. Monica, please, add on the third line. Okay. In our interest group, we have more than 200 members. We'll do, me and Iga and Monica, our best to coordinate all the activity and respond to the needs of all different members. Monica Kuklas is our valuable technical officer. In our group, there is, as any HTAi interest group, a steering committee. In the steering committee, maybe you can see some faces that you already know. There is Professor Christian Kildom, one of our speakers of today. We have also Professor Laura San Pietro Colon for Barcelona, Professor Mario Cicchetti and Dr. Marco Marchetti from Italy, and Marina Formpinoci from Switzerland. Next slide, please. Here you can see which are the activities just completed and ongoing. Last year, we conducted a global survey. We were able to collect responses for more than 87 experts in HTA at different levels. According to this survey, I'll show you soon, emerge a strong interest toward the assessment of digital health already at hospital level. One ongoing project is the one focused on India. The aim of this project is to understand which is the potential role of hospital-based HTA in a system as the Indian one, where at the moment no hospital level is expected. And then there is a project on identification of common barriers and facilitators among hospital-based HTA doers in different countries. Here you can see more in detail what emerged from our survey. It emerged that HTA is performed mainly in a bigger hospital with at least 500 beds, and that the hospital-based HTA units are still established. Almost half of them has been established in the last decade. The HTAi hospital level is finalized to support both clinical and managerial decision-making processes. And in any case, these units are usually quite small. Here you can see which are the technologies that are assessed at hospital level. Almost in all cases are assessed medical equipment and devices, but already in almost 40% of the cases, digital health technologies are evaluated. Next slide, please. Here, some more information on the India project. It's coordinated by myself. We can count on the valuable support of two lead researchers as Professor Danny John and Abhirav Dutta-Majurmat. We expect to have some results in the coming months. And now I leave the floor to my colleague, Iga.
Yeah, hello everyone. Good afternoon or good morning, depending which part of the world you are. So I'm going to talk very, very briefly about activities and results of our hospital-based HTAi group. And as you could notice, actually, Rosella Di Bindino, co-chairing the group with me, mentioned that in the group, we are talking more about evidence-based decision-making processes and at hospital level, so managerial decision-making processes. So we've got a lot of different activities. We try to publish as the projects are over. So one of the example is the publication of the results of our project, which we conducted together with colleagues from 7 countries, Europe and Central Asia. The project was dedicated to barriers and challenges in hospital-based HTAi, and I really recommend this publication as most of the barriers and challenges are cross-country, let's say, so we can use lessons shared from other countries as well. Another is already submitted paper on global survey in hospital-based HTAi, which Rose already mentioned. We've got also the project in India, and the publication is planned. Rose already mentioned about this. We usually organize pre-conference workshop in Sevilla, pre-conference workshop in June. It's usually June 15th or 13th, so mid-June, please remember this. We also try to disseminate the information about hospital-based HTAi across different countries at national conferences. One of those was in Ukraine. Rose was active there. Thanks, Olena Filinyuk, for inviting us. Appreciate it. We try to support Ukraine as well. We try to have collaboration with other scientific societies or societies for biomedical engineers. As you can see, one of the example, we organized joint webinar here in mid-October. Another one, and I had an honor and pleasure to present, was annual Congress of Polish Pharmacoeconomic Society, and we organized dedicated panel for hospital-based HTAi with really international participation, but from Central Eastern Europe mostly, so Poland, Hungary, Slovenia, and Ukraine. But we also organized another panel on dedicated to artificial intelligence in hospital, in HTAi and for HTAi as well. And the discussion was very interesting. Joanna Lies, vice president of the society, moderated the session. It was very, very interesting, a lot of lively discussions. We also, and Rosella was active in this organized webinar with digital technology assessment group, and webinar now, which is ongoing right now, is also part of our activities. Another activity which is really planned, I hope it will come in force next year, is our cooperation with European Health Management Association. So we want to target hospital managers next year. And next slide, please. And this year, as we want to organize a pre-conference workshop again, For me, as coming from Central Eastern Europe, it's quite exotic destination, but I'm going to be there, Buenos Aires, Argentina. So the workshop will be dedicated to hospital-based HTA again. So we are going to talk about life cycle. So from adaptation at local level to collaboration at global level. That's the title we worked on. And we also submitted panel and panel was accepted. So we will also talk about how to evaluate digital health technologies in hospital settings. So that's the plan for next year, for June 2025. And Ros, over to you for introduction of our amazing speakers. I believe we've brought a lot of expertise from different countries here.
Thank you very much. Yes, you can see our speaker in the order in which they will present. First of all, Christian Kildom will show you how digital technologies could be and are assessed in the best way at hospital level. He's working in the Center for Innovative Medical Technology in Denmark. Then Manos Tiazoktis is the project leader of a EU-funded project, EDITA, where EDITA stands for the first health technology assessment framework for digital health at European level. Then Line Listan will share with you her expertise in the assessment of digital health technologies and their procurement. She is working for the Norwegian Center for eHealth. And then from Poland, Jakub, I need your help.
Jakub Kwietko is a really typical Polish name, and he's a practicing doctor actually, so he will join us in 5 minutes. He's just confirmed. Okay. So Jakub Kwietko will join us.
Nice to meet you guys.
Oh, nice to meet you, just in time. Thanks a lot, Jakub, for joining us.
Last but not least important. So I think that now it's time to leave the space to Christian.
Thank you very much. I'm really glad to be part of this, and thank you for the invitation. As Iga showed, the digital technologies are quite central in the work we're doing in hospitals in assessment, because very often the hospitals are the front door for the digital technologies. These technologies are often quite small and often not very costly. So it's something we manage at the hospital level. So I'll give a brief talk about this. And I'm a professor at our innovation center at the hospital in the city of Odense in Denmark. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the hospital. And before the pandemic, I would only been able to show a few cases, a few studies with small samples. Now we have really been moving on. And next slide, please. So here are some examples of home monitoring of patients with pacemakers and ICD pacemakers, patients who have ECG heart monitoring done in collaboration with a Polish company. We have home monitoring of patients with diabetic foot ulcer. We have tens of thousands of patients who used to be hospitalized because they need IV infusion of antibiotics. But now we are trying to move that treatment to the patient's own home with a small digital pump. So the patients get the fluid on Monday in the hospital, and they are able to manage to get the fluid and the IV infusion in their own home. So we're really trying to reduce the number of beds in the hospital. And we also have home monitoring of premature infants based on very large studies. Yeah, then we have video consultations in many clinical departments. So I could have shown any department. I think almost all of our clinical departments are starting to offer patients video consultations. So the patients, if a consultation is only a conversation about food, nutrition, exercise, alcohol, and smoking, that can be done by video just as well. And next one. So we also have an app for the hospital called My Hospital. We have 25,000 daily users, and for more than 300 different treatments, we have separate apps in that generic app. So with information about the treatment, Q&A, the possibility to have video consultation, the information about your treatment. So the same paper we used to give, the same information we used to give in paper, we give that in an app by now. And for 52 of these treatments, we also include patient-reported outcomes, so measurement of quality of life, so the patient can send information to the hospital, and based on that information, we can see if the patient needs to come to the hospital or can stay at home. And next slide. So that was just a few examples of digital services that we are using at the hospitals. I could have taken many others, but and for some of them we have done HTA and done research, and based on that I can give you sort of 3 main challenges and how we handle these challenges, because digital services are different from other healthcare services. And the first one is that they are digital. They are complex. We're talking about complex interventions. So there has been a very nice paper in 2008 about how to evaluate complex interventions. This means that we have many components, that the staff and the patients, their behavior is fundamental to the success of the treatment, many organizations involved, and many clinical outcomes. And it also means that the intervention varies. Thank you. This means that you need to assess the preferences, both of the patients and of the staff. You need to focus on the organization. You need to have a special focus on the organizational outcomes. You need to include many clinical outcomes also, and you need to have a large sample size in your research, because you have to select who are the patients, when should they have the service, what kind of devices should be involved, what kind of staff. So digital services is much more than the device itself. It's a really complex intervention. Thank you. Next one. This one is from a very nice paper from Manuel Gomez about the difference between digital services and pharmaceuticals. And he says that the typical economic evaluation about a pharmaceutical drug is taking a healthcare perspective, is focused on health-related quality of life, and is adopting a cost-utility approach. And this is not very likely to be appropriate in digital health. So you cannot just take the same tools that you apply on the pharmaceuticals and say, okay, we do it in the same way for the digital services. There are differences, and you need to address that when you do the assessment. Next one. So 3 main differences. Well, firstly, the digital services require input from the users and from the patients. So they have to do something. And this means that their use of time and their benefits are central, and also their perception is central. So you need to assess that. It needs to be scalable, or it will be scalable. The digital services are scalable. So if you have invested in the hardware and the software, you can often go from 10 patients to 10,000 of patients with very minor marginal costs. So therefore, you might be doing a study with 25 patients, but you need to look at what would be the impact of going from 24 patients to 1,000 patients. And in some cases, the impact on the cost is very minor. So determining the number of patients is very important for the overall result of your study. And then it has many non-health impacts. So you need to consider effects outside of healthcare. You cannot just look at quality of life. There might be important issues like empowerment, patient satisfaction, but also impact on the healthcare professionals. And the next slide. So we have developed from a European project, we've developed the model for assessment of telemedicine, and it's quite similar to the EONETA domain, but it includes 7 domains. And what you should notice is that, well, in some cases, and I agree, in some cases, the value of digital services might be clinical, but very often you should consider another type of domain as your primary outcome. And we can see that in quite a large proportion of our studies that patient impact, patient satisfaction, or organizational impact might actually in some cases be the true primary outcome. In many studies, we did not show impact on the clinical outcome, but we did show impact on other outcomes. And if you don't assess them, well, then you don't hit the target, then you don't really demonstrate the value of your service. And this might sound easy, but very often you have a medical doctor at the end of the table, and he or she will argue that the clinical outcome always should be the most important outcome, the primary outcome. But if you only focus on the clinical outcome, you may simply overlook the value of the services, but because very often the value is for the patient and the patient's life and empowerment, or for the staff by saving time. So consider maybe if the workload or the number of minutes to perform tasks or patient satisfaction should be your main target. Next slide. And then finally, and this might come to, I might sort of receive some critics from sort of old-fashioned HTA experts and evidence-based practice. Of course, I believe in the randomized controlled trial, but I have to admit, in some cases, it might not be the most relevant assessment to do. And you can do many types. As you know, if you have a background in epidemiology, you know that there are many research methods that can be used. And some of them are very demanding, but also give you high level of evidence. But other methods are maybe more easy to apply and maybe faster to do. And you need to consider that there is more to research than the highest level of evidence. In some cases, you need to be pragmatic, and you can afford to be pragmatic. And if you take the next slide, there was a very nice paper 13 years ago from a UK researcher, Jeremy Wyatt, talking about when should we apply HCA and when should we apply like an observational before-after study. And he was arguing that if you're talking about something very costly or very dangerous to the patients with large health impact, well, then you should do a randomized controlled trial, of course. But are you talking about a low-cost service with very unlikely impact on, very likely minor impact on the health of the patients, well, then you should consider doing something else because it might not be needed to do the expensive and burdensome randomized control trial. And yeah, and I think this is nicely reflected in the UK evidence standards framework for digital health technologies, where they try to divide the technologies into tiers. And they are saying, well, if you are looking at electronic patient record, well, then you should not demand a randomized controlled trial. If you're looking at an app, then maybe you should consider it. But definitely, if you're looking at treatment or monitoring of diagnosis of patients, well, then the randomized controlled trial can be done and a meta-analysis. But you need to divide your technologies depending on the risk for the patients and the cost for the healthcare system. And the last slide. So when you're doing HTA, please consider, firstly, is the technology the device, or is it actually the technology being the organization of care? And if the last one is the case, then you need to focus on the staff. Then you need to consider, is the primary outcome really the clinical outcome, or is it rather patient perception or organizational? And if the last one is the case, then you should focus on these as your primary outcome. And then finally, do consider, I agree, in many cases, we need to do randomized controlled trials. But if we're talking, for example, about an app, a free app to reduce low back pain by physical exercise, well, what can be the risk of that? So in that case, you should consider doing a less burdensome clinical study. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christian. You have already a question about your opinion on randomized control trial, but we leave it for the end. So any of you can speak. Please, Manu. Manu's gone.
Good morning or good afternoon, all. Thank you, Rosella, and thank you, Iga and Monica, for organizing this and for inviting me to speak on a project that you also well know, the HB-HTAi project. My name is Manos Chessiotis. I am the project manager for the Catholic University of Rome, Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore, who is the coordinating partner of this project. HB-HTAi stands for the first European Digital Health Technology Assessment Framework. And this is what we will be trying to do in the next 4 years with the funding of the European Commission, as well as UK Innovate, as you can see, since we also have NICE being part of the consortium. These are the 16 partners currently members of the HB-HTAi consortium from 10 different countries. I'm happy to note, and definitely most relevant to the work you're doing in the hospital-based interest group, that we have 5 university hospitals, all of them users of digital health technologies, but also applicating HTAi in all these institutions. So very interesting to note this. We are a diverse consortium. We have a lot of expertise on HTAi, as I mentioned, from these university hospitals, but we also have HTAi agencies as part of the consortium with NICE, Agenas, and NACWAS from Barcelona. We have European Patient Forum, so patients are on board as well, European Health Management Association, AT Health, and DNV, who is a global assurance partner. Next slide, please. So our main objective, our main goal is that to deliver a new health technology assessment framework, which will be dedicated to the assessment of digital health technologies. We will try not to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to do that. There's a lot of expertise already on HTAi, a lot of existing domains of assessment domains, like the United Core model, etc., etc. So we will try to leverage the knowledge that already is out there and try to somehow understand what the gaps are and create something that will be mostly focusing on digital health technologies assessment. This framework will also be customizable based on the type of the technology that is being assessed. So whether you have like a mobile application, an artificial intelligence, or a telemedicine, or a digital medical device, and the life cycle stage of the technology as well, whilst also we will consider the decision-making process and where is the decision being made, whether that is at the national level or at the local or more regional level, such as the hospital level. Next slide, please. This is a roadmap of HB-HTAi, short-term as part of the project, the first 4 years. We are currently closing the first year of the project. We kicked off on the 1st of January. I mentioned that our expected results is out of developing a new health technology assessment framework. Looking forward, though, into the future, into the midterm and also the long term, where we hope to somehow create a centralized and harmonized approach when it comes to digital health technology assessment. We want to equip the health technology practitioners across Europe, not just the agencies, but mainly the agencies and the hospitals, of course, where this is valid, with a tool that will be able to allow them to reliably assess new and emerging technologies in a timely and also a more efficient way than what is currently going on. The overall goal could lead us in having a common EU market of digital health solutions, where we also share lessons and methodologies across countries of how these technologies should and how they should be assessed. Next slide, please. This is the work plan. As usually, all the projects, the European projects, they divide the work in different work packages. We have 8 work packages for the sake of HB-HTAi. Currently, we have a lot of active work packages with numbers 2, 3, and 4. 2 is the work package which mostly has to do with regulatory aspects. 3 is the design, and 4 is the development of the framework, and they will be getting into their routine basically next year. Second year is dedicated fully to the design and the development of the HB-HTAi framework. Next slide, please. I'm just going to give you some insights very quickly because we have limited time, but I will try to give you some an idea of what we have done already and how this will be incorporated into the design, because it's important to know that we want to somehow co-create and co-develop this framework based on what the needs and requirements are also from the decision makers. And by decision makers, you can see that we have identified different stakeholder groups, where policymakers, agencies, industry, healthcare providers, patients, etc. And with different methodologies, we try to understand what is eventually that they need, what are the gaps that they're currently having, and how can we best develop this framework to fit their purpose. Next slide. So we did this for all stakeholder groups, but since this webinar is relevant mostly to hospital-based, I will just focus on some of the results that might be relevant to the design and the development of the framework on a later stage. This is a work that was mainly carried out utilizing the expertise that we have within the consortium, so the hospital universities, but also leveraging somehow the network that we have also through Health Technology Assessment Interest Group. We have initially carried out a literature review, which allowed us to understand some of the main limitations on the existing HTA frameworks. And then we carried out basically interviews with 22 individuals, experts, all of them, in the majority of them, experts and already involved in the assessment of digital health technologies. As you can see, 17 out of 22. And they all come from different countries. Most of them, the biggest numbers are in Europe, because this is the context in which we are currently operating. But you can also see on the bottom right-hand side that they also come from different levels of expertise, like senior level heads of units, director of departments, etc. Next slide, please. So these are the main findings, which I try to put very briefly into a slide. I want to focus on the main challenges by using the existing HTA frameworks, focusing mostly on the fact that it is a true challenge to assess these technologies when it comes to the clinical, the economical, and the organizational implications. And this is extremely important. And as Christian mentioned earlier, it is a complex evaluation to perform, and especially when it comes to the organizational aspects, it's not always easy or so straightforward on what's the main things that matter the most. And then if you can see, there are things like such as behavioral changes who are associated with organizational transformations, and that might be also an interesting thing to note. So what is needed? What should we do as a project is that we should do a validated and consensus-based framework, and this is what we do by co-creating the EDITA framework. We will pilot, and I will speak later a bit on the timeline, what's coming in the next years, but we will pilot as well this framework in different contexts and with different technologies. We will provide guidelines for the different HTA practitioners across the world, and we will also provide training on how to use this framework. In the same time, we will also have a repository of best practices, like of the pilot studies, for example, we will be performing as a project. This will go into there. And we will also have a defined taxonomy, which shows the work that we have also been doing, also through a consensus building on which are the definitions for digital health technologies. We've been asked also to do something that promotes collaboration between hospital and managerial and meso-level HTA units, like regional units rather than national, trying to connect a bit, the dots between the various health systems. Some key messages to take away. Christian mentioned something about the randomized controlled trials, and I completely agree. This is also something that is emerging from the interviews, how we should be trying to identify different and innovative, perhaps, evidence requirements and strategies for evidence generation, considering also real-world evidence when it comes to digital health technologies, considering also how many data are deriving in this case. The important thing also to note here is that the framework should also adapt the assessment based on the context, so how local, regional, and national, and that's something we will be doing anyway, as we mentioned before, and identify how the assessment steps should be staged and based on the life cycle of the technology, as we discussed earlier. Finally, it would be interesting to see how the patient selection for trials and also how patient satisfaction within the usage of digital health technologies and how these outcomes could also be measured. Next slide, please. So that's a bit of the timeline, what's going to be happening from now on. As I mentioned, this is the end of the first year for the project. We have done a lot of preparatory work, which will be going into the design. And the concept design should be ready by April 2025, incorporating all the knowledge on the regulatory context, the taxonomy, existing methodologies, and the stakeholder needs. Then there is also work happening on the development of the framework, and basically these things will go in parallel to have the framework ready by December 2025. And then this will go into 2 pilot phases. First pilot phase, which will start next year and will be happening in 6 hospitals, partners of the consortium. So we will be testing through hospitals, as well as in the second pilot phase with external open call technologies outside of the consortium. We will also have a stakeholder evaluation workshop in the beginning of 2026. And eventually all these activities and all these actions will lead into the finalization of the framework through piloting and evaluation of the various stakeholders. And then important to know that also in the third year, we will also we will be proceeding with the digitalization of the framework. So this is going to be a fully digital framework developed in a digital context. Then from 2027 onwards, we should, and we're already working actually on the long-term through sustainability of the project in making this a valid product for HTA practitioners, as we mentioned, but for the full ecosystem, I would like to say, not just for Europe, but perhaps also for the world moving forward. And I think that's it from my side, right? Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Manos. And now it's time to move to Norway with Line. She will introduce us to national governance model in e-health and assessment.
Thank you. I'm currently in Oslo at the Oslo University Hospital, and people are leaving for dinner at home, so there will be some noise in the background. I'm Line Lindstad. I'm a researcher at the Norwegian Center for e-health Research, and I will tell you a little bit about an assessment study we did. We've been following the Vestre Viken. It's a health trust southwest of Oslo. It's 4 hospitals, and they're on the road to implement CE-marked apps in the clinic, particularly in radiology. So next slide, please. So then the important thing is to realize a governance model which includes all the important stakeholders, so that in the beginning you raise all the different questions from different perspectives, like for instance, the clinical, how do we find the clinical evidence for AI in the clinic? What are our clinical needs? What are the organizational needs and change? And what about cybersecurity? So we follow the meetings, observe the meetings, and we also did a lot of interviews with all these different stakeholders. And their aim was to not develop a research project, but to go out and buy CE-marked apps and implement them directly into the clinic. So let's see, next, I'll tell you more, next page. So and this is a picture, actually, for the first time I made a picture for my presentation directly from AI. So you see it's generated by DALL-E. But what the hospital in the beginning, they thought that they could go out in the market and buy CE-marked apps. But talking to the industry through an innovation procurement process, they realized that they couldn't just buy apps. They had to buy big platforms, which from one vendor, and then that vendor had deals with the production of apps. So they had to buy certain platforms with certain apps. And in the beginning, they did a clinical evaluation on their needs and how to realize a clinic AI, which could, the radiologists have more time to do other stuff, etc., to free their time. But then they realized that this first platform and the first app they could buy which was easy to implement, was a CE-marked app for bone fracture. So then the next slide, please. And they realized the one who actually got the benefit here, it's the patients, particularly the patients with no broken legs and arms, because they just waited 2 minutes in the hospital. And then they could say, okay, you can go home because you don't have a broken leg and arm. You can come back if you feel pain, but you can go out. And then they reduced the number of patients in the emergency room who were waiting for their results. And since they got the results so quickly, they just went out. And it didn't actually reduce the work burden for the radiologists. And what they've seen now is that to reduce the work burden of the radiologists, they will make what is the name in English, but those who are more into bone fractures, who are repairing the bones, those specialists, they have a look at the pictures quickly together with the AI app instead of the radiologist. So you have a plan of where the benefits will come, and when you implement the plan, it doesn't always turn out the way you had planned. So then the next picture. And this is the last picture actually, but this is not very, it's the main for us as researchers. What we've found that what was very, very interesting is that you can't just implement the app like you know, when you're installing a Xerox machine or you're installing video conferencing equipment, etc. You can just turn the switch on and off. But here, when you implement CE-marked apps, you have to do retrospective and prospective studies, and you have to follow how the app actually works over a certain time period to see if it actually delivers what it's supposed to deliver from the manufacturer. And you can't just implement it and then move along. You have to have a system where you are monitoring the effects or how the system works. So you need, on the regional level and the national level, you need a national infrastructure for this. And this has to be harmonized also with how the platforms you are buying. So what you started as a small project in the health trust, which is not the university health trust, where the clinics and the project managers thought that they could just go out and buy small apps, has now turned into a big regional project where the biggest health region in Norway is taking care of buying platforms and also the infrastructure for retrospective and prospective studies of the CE-marked apps. So that was all I wanted to say about the procurement process and the evaluation we've done on that. And that in the beginning, we thought this would be a very small and neat project, but it actually turned out to be something quite big and complex. So it turns back to what you started with, Christian. It's complex. And it's maybe we can say that HTA is a way of better understanding or better to manage the complexity in these processes, because then we can have a systematic approach to understanding what's going on here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Line. Thank you for your presentation. And actually, I believe you are really right with HTA, like evidence-based approach, especially what Christian also said about this organizational, social aspects and like patient satisfaction and of course medical stuff and other stuff as well, non-medical stuff into consideration. So I think HTA could be the way forward to assess digital health. With that, so thank you so much for your presentation. With that, I'm going to introduce Polish speakers. So probably I'm the only one apart from Jakub, who can really pronounce your last name. So Jakub Chwietko is the last, Monika will be the last speaker. So you're now the speaker. So Jakub will share Polish perspective and experiences on digital health in Poland and slightly abroad. So Jakub, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Iga, for the invitation, first of all, and for the opportunity to speak. Lina, I loved the presentation that you had right now. Since 3 weeks, I came back to a hospital as a manager, and I want to implement some innovation. This is what they told me I will be able to do. So I'm looking forward as well to having your perspective on that. That's super nice. And today I will just give you a brief overview of digital health in Poland, lessons learned from local practice and national strategy and what's happening right now. So next slide, please. So when it comes to overview right now, we have a couple of different initiatives which is happening. Poland is getting heavily digitalized, fortunately, and that's a good information for us. Of course, some of the things like prescription or e-referrals are working really successfully and have been rolled out, as well as patient internet account. And many investments in the hospital IT systems were already taken. So maybe to some of you, it's not something which is super highly innovative, but I believe that still, when you look at the map of Europe, we're the ones who are doing this quite well at that point. Next slide, please. So we are going the profound digital transformation in healthcare right now, which was also concluded in a strategic vision, which was done by the Ministry of Digitalization, who lately brought up the digitalization strategy plan until 2035. And it's a long-term vision for the digitalization of healthcare services, not only healthcare, because this is the Ministry of Digitalization, so they were talking in general of many aspects of digitalization of the country, but definitely healthcare is being one of the super important parts that plays the role in this strategy. So if anybody would like to, of course, have a look at that, it's highly recommended. We have governmental leaders, Ministry of Health, Agency for Health Technology Assessment, and the Ministry of Digital Affairs plays a central role here. We had a couple of changes because of the governmental changes that happened last year. And for example, probably Iga can confirm that recently Agency for Health Technology Assessment is super active in the field of digitalization of health technologies and innovation, which gives us hope that we will have some more innovations coming to the market faster. Then Poland aims to become a regional leader. So definitely Poland is one of the biggest countries in the Central Eastern Europe region, and would like to play a role of the leader when it comes to the digitalization. We are right now working on pilot programs, regulatory sandboxes, and health technology assessment examples, which will bring us forward in this race of innovation, I would say. Next slide, please. So right now, when it comes to digitalization or assessment of the health technologies, we have a project run by Ministry of Health, which is called Certified Health Application Portfolio. So there is no reimbursement scheme, unfortunately, which is pinned to this project, but the project is a national registry of certified health apps. It's a project that needs to and wants to build trust among patients and healthcare providers, and certified apps include teleconsultation platforms, mental health support tools, and chronic disease management applications. Those apps are focusing. There are many restrictions when it comes to the application wallet and portfolio at this moment. Those apps needs to be patient facing, so B2C. They cannot be commercially available, so those applications cannot be sold on the market, which of course is somehow minimizing the possibilities for the startups actually to make money on those applications. The Ministry of Health don't want to promote applications which are paid for patients, at least at this moment. And the process has three stages. So at the first stage, the Center of eHealth, which is the body, it's like a software house of Ministry of Health, you can say, is assessing the application when it comes to data security and GDPR, and if everything and cybersecurity, and if everything is good, this application will be then assessed by the National Doctors Chamber, which is nominating 3 doctors, and those 3 doctors are assessing the application when it comes to the medical information which is brought by this application. And the third part of the process is patient advocates are also brought into the stage, and 3 person, 3 people. For example, if it's a diabetes application, so 3 diabetic persons are assessing this application if this application is useful for the patient in the end. So this is a pilot which was supposed to be running for 2 years. It's already 2nd year of running. Unfortunately, right now we only have 2 applications in the patient's wallet. So definitely it didn't go as well maybe as planned, but there will be many lessons learned from this one. And we hope that this one will also be a forerunner for the reimbursement of applications in the next stage. So next slide, please. Then we have pilots program guidelines with Health Technology Agency based on the experience of pilots that we had running also during the COVID and after COVID times. The Health Technology Assessment Agency, especially the pilots of telemedical equipment and telemedical services. The Health Technology Agency saw that there is a need to build like a framework to assess those pilots because some of the pilots didn't met the KPIs of the health technology assessment in the end, which was, and because of this situation, they couldn't be able to look at the reimbursement propositions. So the health technology assessment built the framework to navigate through those pilot assessments. Unfortunately, this framework right now, this is not it's complementary, so it's not a must. It's a guideline that the health technology assessment done, but when you talk to the agency, they're saying, well, this is something that is nice to have, not must have. So this is not well-established framework, which needs to be done by all the pilots which are running. This is just a nice to have, which will help the agency to assess those technologies in the end, but that can also change. Next slide, please. So again, the initiatives that is also shaping the innovation and telemedical landscape of Poland lately is called Telemedical Roundtable at the Ministry of Health. This is a platform where many stakeholders, public, private, hospitals, startups can meet to have a dialogue with the Ministry of Health. It's going for a 3rd year already. And there are around between 2 and 4 meetings during a year. So either every half a year or either every quarter, this telemedical medical roundtable is takes place in the Ministry of Health. And the Ministry of Health is bringing different KPIs and different subjects to that. But I think that Monica will talk a little bit more about this, so I won't do a spoiler, but I have to say that Iga was a shining star in the last telemedical roundtable. So definitely have a lot of experience when it comes to that as well. Next slide, please. So again, different initiatives shaping digital landscape in Poland. Right now, the Chamber of Polish medtech companies, Izba Polmed, started together with Medical Innovation Institute, so my institute, a health hub, which is a platform also connecting different startups. We want to help them to accelerate and commercialize. We have initiative called AI in Healthcare, which was the author of the first white paper on AI in healthcare in Europe, which was done a couple of years ago. Then we have a fast track for innovation. That's a new initiative as well, started since 2 years. This one aims to bring better and faster frameworks for initiatives in Poland. Then we have a national Doctors' Chamber Innovation Networks, also supporting collaboration, facilitation, and implementation of medical innovations. And they are the one responsible for the assessment of the medical wallet, which I told you about. We have Mother and Child Startup Challenge. This is a startup challenge of 8 public hospitals, which are each year seeking for the best solutions that can be implemented then in those 8 hospitals. So this clearly goes in the way of public sandboxes on how to implement innovation into the hospital public ecosystem. So definitely worth looking at as well. And last but not least, Warsaw Health Innovation Hub, which is a platform run by the Medical Research Agency, which is a public-private partnership aiming at fostering health innovation, where different medical pharma companies are coming together to work with the government on digital innovation as well in the field. Next slide, please. So the lessons learned from Poland, if I would like to summarize in 5 points: embrace pilots and testing, create trust through certification, build collaborative ecosystems. Regulatory readiness matters, so don't wait for the European Health Data Space and AI Acts. try to act and try to do as much as possible during away, waiting for those regulations coming to your country, and invest in digital skills and capacity building, definitely initiatives which also needs more and more recognition. And I think that was the last slide from what I know. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer. Please contact me, and thank you again for the opportunity to speak today.
Yeah, brilliant presentation, Jakub Chwieczko. Thank you so much for giving us very informative presentation, actually. To Polish telehealth or e-health landscape, I would also add very important point, which is the network of digital health or digital medicine centers, which are 19 across country. Because I had meeting, I chair one of those centers in Gdynia, Pomeranian Hospitals, and we had very important meeting at the end of last week with a medical research agency, and even the president of the agency was there talking with us. So it seems to be very important. So EDITA project is also well received in Poland. I think it has been well disseminated as well. So actually EDITA project was invited to speak at telemedicine's table as well. By saying that, I will give the floor to Monika last, but not least. Monika Kukla, our technical officer, and Monika was presenting a EDITA project with myself at Ministry of Health last Wednesday, not Thursday, Wednesday actually, and she's a junior researcher. Hopefully will do her PhD within EDITA project. So there are some joint common activities. Monika, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks. 2 minutes for me. Today we have a strong representation from Poland's side, and I would like to briefly connect this Polish initiatives and fitting conclusion for today's webinar. I think that worth to add, as Iga and Manos mentioned, Poland is also involved in EDITA project, and additionally, in Poland, we adopted the hospital-based HTA model inspired by the ADOPTA project to integrate health technology assessment for non-pharmaceutical innovation into our healthcare system. Those efforts led to groundwork for evaluating innovative healthcare solution effectively. And I would also like to highlight the initiative led by the Polish Ministry of Health, the telemedicine roundtable, which Jakub already mentioned. And at a recent meeting together with Iga, we had the opportunity to participate in discussion about the effective evaluation of digital health solution. And I want to just give a few key takeaways from those conversations. Was the critical importance of collaboration across sector, public institutions, private enterprises, technology providers, NGO, professional association, patient, and regulators, of course. And only our collective efforts can we enhance to quality of care and broaden access to effective digital solution. And one of the principal conclusions from those discussions was the need to establish clear guidelines for hospital and as well for digital health technology providers, well-defined development strategy, ensure that those solutions align with the real patient and system needs, enabling the successful implementation. I think that it's crucial. And at the same time, we must continue learning from our international partners, and cross-border collaboration allow us to exchange experience, gain inspiration, and apply proven practices. And I believe that today's webinar has contributed significantly to those goals. And that's it from my side. I promise that it will be brief, and I think that it was. And thank you. And if you have a question, now it's time for question.
Yeah, so thank you, Monika, so much. Exactly on time, I would say. So you've really done your best. Congratulations. Very informative. Monica was added in the last minute, actually, because the meeting at Ministry of Health was last Wednesday. But we thought it's worth to mention this at international stage because we are proud of this. So, and we still can learn a lot from international partners, as Monica said. So 2 minutes for questions, perhaps, if there are any. Rose, over to you.
There is one from you, from Poland, in our Q&A section. Is will there be a routine in national HTA or reimbursement for digital technology starting in 2025 in Poland, as previously laid out in the governmental strategy?
Yeah, very good question, I would say, and very timely indeed. So, as well as I'm informed, and I have participated in a number of meetings, there are really plans to adopt HTA guidelines, national guidelines in Poland next year, and also to adapt them to not only for pharmaceutical technologies, but also for digital health technologies, which will be a kind of milestone, I believe. If it is feasible really to do this next year or perhaps 2026, I don't know. From my standpoint, we've got enough expertise as Jakub and others. We can learn from our international partners from Norway, for example, or from Denmark. There is a lot of expertise how to assess digital health technologies. So I think we can perhaps not transfer, but somehow adopt this experience from other countries to Poland into Polish context. If it's feasible 2025, not sure. I keep my fingers crossed. So that's my comment. Christian, what do you think?
Well, I can just say that we're beginning to see the impact of our digitalization activities, and during the last 5 years, we have reduced the number of outpatient visits at the hospital by 13% and the number of admissions by 14%. So we are in the progress of downsizing the size of the hospitals, and I really do think that is what we needed, and that is also the national strategy for the healthcare structure, that we need to make the hospital smaller and make primary care bigger. Because we're not able to manage the demographic challenges in the hospital.
Thank you, Christian, for this comment. That's very important. And yeah, I can only say that Polish experts would love to learn from Denmark. We were invited, as you know, because we met there to Denmark last week, 2 weeks ago. And the study visit was organized by the Danish embassy in Warsaw. Appreciated that we were invited, so we could visit and learn from others from Denmark. So I think, and Polish healthcare system is really going into that direction. So we've got this. I wouldn't like to say too much about Poland because it's international webinar, but we've got this very famous reverse pyramid project, which means, and it's going to be completed in the coming years. So it means we are going to reduce the number of hospitalizations, and then also to change the model, like more primary care, perhaps even less outpatient specialist visit, to shift to primary care, but definitely reduce the number of hospitalizations. And I also believe that the burnout and the reduced and really limited human resources in healthcare and the burnout after pandemic, etc. It's really important topic, and it also can be also digitalization could impact that aspect, and that's what you mentioned while during your presentation, actually. So by having said that, I think it's time to wish you Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay, so publicly, Merry Christmas to all of you and Happy New Year. So fingers crossed let's share international efforts and digitalize healthcare. So thank you so much for joining, and applause for our speakers. Appreciate it really.